Step into Missouri's past, where every photograph whispers stories of resilience, discovery, and transformation. From bustling city streets to tornado-ravaged ruins, from the first automobiles to frontier schools, these rare images reveal a world both fragile and determined. Travel back to the 19th century and witness Missouri as history carved its destiny. Eureka, Missouri, 1900. A quiet view of Eureka at the turn of the century, where dirt roads wound past wooden fences and farmhouses dotted the hills. A horse-drawn cart moves slowly toward town, while the clustered rooftops rise beyond bare trees. This glimpse preserves Missouri's rural beginnings before rapid expansion arrived. 14th Street and Soulard, St. Louis, 1900. At the corner of 14th and Soulard, the Lenboiter Deichmann Manufacturing Company stands with bold painted signs in 1900. Electric poles and streetcar lines cut across the cobblestone street, marking a city in transition. St. Louis's working-class neighborhoods reflected both industry and resilience at the dawn of a new century. South Garrison Avenue, St. Louis, 1900. Along South Garrison Avenue, storefronts line the cobblestone street while a horse-drawn buggy waits at the curb. Captured around 1900 by Charles C. Holt, the image reflects St. Louis's bustling neighborhoods at the dawn of a new century, where electric poles and wooden facades coexisted in a changing cityscape. Broadway and Chestnut, St. Louis, 1900. Looking north along Broadway toward Chestnut Street, the busy heart of St. Louis pulses with cable cars, horse-drawn wagons, and bustling pedestrians. Around 1900, rising brick facades and storefronts announced a new century. The image preserves Missouri's transformation from river town to thriving urban hub. First Automobile by St. Louis Motor Carriage, 1899. In 1899, the St. Louis Motor Carriage Company completed its first automobile, later sold to local resident A.L. Lambrechts. With spoked wheels and an open seat, it represented Missouri's leap into the age of motorized travel, years before Detroit dominated America's car industry. Bicycle Party resting in Fenton, Missouri, 1897. On September 12, 1897, a bicycle party was photographed resting in Fenton, Missouri, as part of the U.S. Army's 25th Infantry Regiment Bicycle Corps' Great Experiment to test the effectiveness of military bicycles. This 1,900-mile journey from Fort Missoula, Montana, to St. Louis, Missouri, involved 41 days of travel through various terrains and climates. St. Louis Tornado, 1896. On May 27, 1896, one of America's deadliest tornadoes struck St. Louis, killing over 250 people and leaving thousands homeless. These photographs reveal shattered buildings along Lafayette Avenue, the damaged city hospital, and destruction near Union Depot. The storm's fury tore through homes, churches, and businesses, reshaping entire neighborhoods and reminding Missouri of nature's devastating power. View from the Old Courthouse, St. Louis, 1895. From the dome of the Old Courthouse, photographer Emile Ball captured St. Louis's bustling core in 1895. Chestnut Street stretches beneath, dominated by the stately Merchants Exchange Building. Smokestacks and brick facades reveal a city pulsing with trade along the Mississippi, poised between its frontier roots and industrial ambitions.
Today, at this very moment, are you enjoying this nostalgic trip? Like and subscribe now to follow all 50 U.S. states in rare, colorized photos. Don't miss the rest of the journey.
Glasgow Fire Department, 1895. In the small river town of Glasgow, Missouri, 16 firefighters posed proudly with their hook and ladder wagons in 1895. Behind them stood local businesses, including a dry goods store and the office of J.D. Atkinson, a painless dentist. Their tall ladders, pushed and pulled by hand, reveal the demanding nature of firefighting in that era. First horseless vehicle, St. Louis, 1893. In 1893, John D. Perry Lewis unveiled St. Louis's first horseless carriage, a buggy converted to run on batteries. Inspired by Parisian inventions, the machine reached 8 miles per hour. This humble contraption signaled Missouri's entry into the automotive age, years before the nation embraced gasoline-powered cars. Fall festivities, Broadway and Chestnut, St. Louis, 1892. In 1892, St. Louis dazzled with fall festivities that illuminated downtown with more than 70,000 electric lights. Broadway north of Chestnut Street glowed beneath ornate arches as streetcars passed beneath the spectacle. Thousands of visitors flocked to admire the city's brilliance, marking Missouri's embrace of modern civic pride and progress. Hannibal on the Mississippi, Missouri, 1890. From across the broad Mississippi, the town of Hannibal rises with church spires and clustered rooftops in 1890. The Burlington Railroad Freight House anchors the busy riverfront. Known as Mark Twain's boyhood home, Hannibal's setting along the Great River shaped both commerce and the imagination of American storytelling. Kansas City Depot, 1890. Kansas City's first great train station, Union Depot, stood as a gateway to the nation. After the Hannibal Bridge opened in 1869, this hub linked the city with St. Louis, Chicago, and New York. It became a powerhouse of trade, fueling Kansas City's rise as a commercial crossroads of America. Henry Elder Grocer, St. Louis, 1888. On Choteau Avenue, the Henry Elder Grocery Store stood as a neighborhood landmark in 1888. Its brick facade and painted signs promised groceries and provisions, while locals gathered at the corner entrance. Captured by F.R. Foreman, the image reflects the rhythms of commerce shaping everyday life in St. Louis. Excelsior Springs, downtown, Missouri, 1886. In 1886, Excelsior Springs emerged as a booming health resort, famed for its mineral waters. This panoramic view shows the small downtown nestled among wooded hills, where visitors flocked seeking cures and relaxation. The image preserves a moment when Missouri's natural springs brought prosperity and national attention to a rural town. Workers at Budweiser Brewery, St. Louis, 1885. A proud team of brewery workers pose with barrels outside the Anheuser-Busch plant in St. Louis. Their vests and bowler hats reflect the style of the 1880s, when Budweiser was emerging as a national brand. This image captures Missouri's industrial pride and German-American brewing heritage. Westport, a gateway to Kansas City's beginnings, 1885. This view of Westport Road and Pennsylvania Avenue captures the historic district that gave birth to Kansas City. Founded by John Calvin McCoy, Westport thrived as a hub for merchants and pioneers heading west. Its connection to Westport Landing cemented its role in the city's earliest growth. Aftermath of St. Nicholas Hotel Fire, St. Louis, 1884. On January 4, 1884, flames consumed the St. Nicholas Hotel in downtown St. Louis. The building's charred shell, encased in ice from firefighting efforts, loomed over the street as crowds gathered to witness the aftermath. The haunting image reflects both tragedy and resilience in Missouri's bustling river city. Pavilion at Tower Grove Park, St. Louis, 1883. An ornate pavilion rises among manicured paths and trimmed hedges in Tower Grove Park, photographed in 1883. Designed in Victorian style, these structures gave the city a European flair. Donated by philanthropist Henry Shaw, the park became a green refuge for St. Louis residents amid urban growth. E.G. Bush Hardware Store, Washington, Missouri, 1882. In 1882, a 25-year-old Bush stands proudly behind the counter of his hardware store in Washington, Missouri. Shelves packed with tools and supplies line the narrow shop, capturing the entrepreneurial spirit that defines small-town commerce. Such stores were lifelines for communities, linking craftsmanship, trade, and the everyday lives of Missourians. Union Depot, Kansas City, 1880. Kansas City's first Union Depot opened in 1878 in West Bottoms, serving as a vital hub for America's expanding railroads. This 1880 view shows its ornate towers and bustling tracks. Though later abandoned after devastating floods, the depot paved the way for the Grand Union Station, completed in 1914. N. Goulman Jr. Drugstore, St. Louis, 1878. Inside the N. Goulman Jr. Pharmacy on St. Louis Avenue, shelves overflow with glass bottles and remedies in 1878. The proud shopkeeper leans by the counter as sunlight filters across polished wood. This scene preserves Missouri's late 19th century embrace of modern medicine and neighborhood commerce. First kindergarten in the United States, St. Louis, 1876. In 1876, Susan Blow founded America's first kindergarten at Des Peres School in St. Louis. Inspired by Friedrich Froebel's methods, her classroom emphasized play, creativity, and early childhood development. This photograph shows the historic room where Missouri pioneered a movement that reshaped education across the nation. 4th Street and Morgan, St. Louis, 1876. Horse-drawn streetcars rumbled down 4th Street, south of Morgan. Photographer Emile Boley captured storefronts crowded along the muddy road, where carriages and pedestrians mingled. Known later as Delmar Boulevard and Convention Plaza, this bustling artery reveals St. Louis balancing frontier grit with rising urban sophistication. Concordia Seminary, St. Louis, 1875. The grand facade of Concordia Seminary stands tall in St. Louis, framed by leafy trees and crowned with flags in 1875. Built in 1850, the building trained generations of Lutheran pastors. Its Gothic-inspired architecture symbolized faith and education, anchoring the city's German-American community in a period of transition. Eads Bridge, under construction, St. Louis, 1873. Robert Benecke captured the Eads Bridge rising over the Mississippi in 1873. The steel spans stretch toward each other, while workers and barges crowd the riverbank. When completed, the bridge became a marvel of American engineering, linking Missouri to Illinois and cementing St. Louis's role as a gateway city. Kansas City, General View, 1873. Photographed by Robert Benecke, this view from 10th Street and Broadway shows Kansas City in its early days, with wooden buildings and the Kansas Pacific Railway at its core. The city was still modest, but the seeds of future growth and transformation were already being planted along its rail lines. Kansas City Taxidermists Department, 1873. Photographed by Robert Benecke, this image shows the Kansas Pacific Railway's taxidermy department in Kansas City. Buffalo heads line the storefront, used for advertising and display. The scene reflects both the rise of the railway era and the dramatic decline of the American bison, hunted nearly to extinction during this period. Kansas City, Kansas Pacific Railway Offices, 1873. Captured by Robert Benecke, this image shows the general offices of the Kansas Pacific Railway at 5th Street and Broadway. The sturdy brick building reflects the permanence and influence of the railroads in shaping Kansas City, anchoring it as a commercial hub during the westward expansion of the United States. Big Mound, St. Louis, 1869. This photograph captures the partial grading of the largest Native American mound in St. Louis. Built by the Mississippian culture centuries earlier, Big Mound once dominated the northern skyline. By the late 19th century, progress demanded its destruction, erasing one of the last monumental links to the city's ancient past. 4th and Olive Streets, St. Louis, 1855. At the bustling corner, Kennard's Wallpaper Store and the Stock and Daguerrean Gallery attracted customers with signs promising wallpaper, curtains, and 25-cent portraits. This daguerreotype captures the blend of commerce and photography in a rapidly growing city, where storefronts and horse-drawn wagons shape the daily rhythm of urban life. Easterly's Daguerreotype Gallery, St. Louis, 1851. Above a local drugstore, Thomas Martin Easterly opened one of America's earliest photography studios. His daguerreotypes captured frontier faces and expanding cityscapes, preserving a young nation's memory in silvered plates. This modest brick building on a bustling St. Louis street marked the beginning of photography's role in documenting American history. Governor McNair's Residence, St. Louis, 1850. This daguerreotype by Thomas M. Easterly depicts the humble log home of Alexander McNair, Missouri's first governor, photographed in 1850. Standing at Main and Spruce Streets, the weathered structure recalls St. Louis's frontier days, where civic leaders lived simply while guiding the young state through its earliest decades. Tom Thumb's Visit, St. Louis, 1848. On March 28, 1848, crowds filled 4th and Olive Streets to witness the arrival of Tom Thumb, the celebrated performer promoted by P.T. Barnum. Captured by daguerreotypist Thomas M. Easterly, the scene reveals carriages, brick facades, and eager onlookers, an early glimpse of popular entertainment in Missouri's growing river city. Canton Tea Company and Union Fire Company, St. Louis, 1848. Captured by pioneer photographer Thomas Easterly, this daguerreotype reveals bustling life at 4th and Olive Streets in 1848. The Canton Tea Company stands proudly as members of Union Fire Company No. 2 pose with their hand-drawn engine. It is among Missouri's earliest glimpses of urban energy frozen in silver. These photographs remind us that Missouri's history is not only written in books, but etched in faces, streets, and structures long gone. Every image preserves a fragment of life, courage, and struggle. If these glimpses of the past moved you, share your thoughts, subscribe, and join us for the next journey.